Hello, everybody. Welcome to our rescheduled April Patreon live stream. Thank you for coming and seeing us here now. I'm Brian Walters, the event coordinator and art director here at Hit Point Press, and I am joined by Leesha Hannigan, the original art director for Humblewood 1, and an amazing artist in her own above and beyond that. So hello, Leesha.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
It's great to have you here. Just so if anybody's not familiar with who you are, do you mind telling us a little bit about what you do, like what properties you've worked on besides Humblewood, that kind of thing?
Yes, absolutely. So I am by and large a artist for tabletop. So at the moment, some of my clients, sort of past and present, would be Magic the Gathering, Dungeons and Dragons, sort of that sort of thing. And yeah, sort of I don't know. I mean, I've sort of done some artwork for video games as well, some publishing. But yeah, mostly tabletop these days. And I've also obviously art directed Humblewood 1. I was the art director working on Daggerheart as well just recently. I am now just an illustrator for that project. But yeah, so art direction is sort of my other main interest, I would say.
So, again, then thanks for being here. We've got some questions from some that people submitted, and we'll chat a little bit. But I think what I'm really interested in, what is really awesome to me is like you were the inspiration for Humblewood. Do you mind talking a little bit about what that was like, the early days of
Yeah,
Humblewood?
yeah, no, it was really cool. I was kind of doing a bunch of sort of personal pieces exploring an idea of just sort of like anthropomorphized animals, mostly birds initially. And then I was approached by Hip Point Press to sort of, it was funny, we did not initially set out to make a project as big as what Humblewood turned out to be. It was, I think it was originally meant to just be like a set of reference cards or something, and then it really quickly like turned into like a really big project, and we kind of didn't plan for it, but we kind of just rolled with it. So it was really cool. We were all very excited about all of the ideas and concepts we had sort of going on, and I still kind of can't believe that we actually pulled it together because again, it was not planned. But yeah, as anyone who has worked on a new IP would know, there is a lot of sort of you kind of learn and change things on the fly throughout the whole process, and it's always hard to know how long something will take. You often have to sort of like the rules will change, and you have to adjust the artwork to go with like the game development side of things as well, the game design, and it was a lot of scrambling, but it was really cool. It was a very fun experience.
Yeah, so I know the first pieces that were really done were that the little the precursor to Riffin, right? The night owl and the pigeon wizard that eventually became the dean of the avium. What was it that made you want to do those?
I would love to say, yeah, I know. Look, I would love to say there was some deep and meaningful reason, but honestly, it probably just came down to I like bird, want to draw bird. But I think, but like, I guess going a bit deeper than that is like anytime I sit down and start to do sort of little creature concepts, I do kind of think of I don't know if anyone else does this, probably, but like I do think of them as real in my head. Um It's like my little headcanon. I'm like, this guy exists in my brain now because I drew him. So it becomes this kind of like, yeah, interesting thing where I like get so attached to weird little guys that I draw. And I think I was just sort of playing with a few ideas of, I mean, I love properties like that have animal races in them already. I mean, it could be anything like, Skyrim, it could be like World of Warcraft or any RPG that lets you play an animal. I just love that. So yeah, it was probably just throwing around little ideas. And I kind of wanted to do a series because I think doing series is it's a good way also, if there are any artists listening, it's a good way to combat like art block, is to think of an idea and go, okay, let's make a little series of just little guys and they can be based on a theme. And so for me, it was sort of creating sort of like a little D&D party in my head, which is why like I did a wizard, I did the little night owl, and I had like ideas for like a little ranger and like all of this other stuff. So I guess it was going to be a little Lord of the Rings-esque like party in my head. So yeah.
Did any of those like little other party members wind up in the book? Like, did you get another artist to work on one of those, or is it just something that just kind of lives up there?
Honestly, the main ones were obviously Riffin, our favorite little guy. He's just a good boy. The pigeon wizard, the corvid or corvum rather, necromancer type of character, the little ranger. Who else did we have? Those were the main ones in my head, and those I actually illustrated those ones directly. And then we did get a bunch of other artists to do sort of more in my mind, the party kind of grew, like, like when you'll start a D&D campaign and then, maybe you'll have a friend that's like, oh my God, cool, you start a new campaign, like, can I join? And or they meet like NPCs along the way. It kind of felt a bit like that. So yeah, it was really cool.
Nice. Yeah, it took me a really long time to figure out. So we have like Riffin, the night owl, and then you have Oddwald, who became the necromancer, but he's a necromancer. Like the fact that that was a pun escaped me for years, and I'm so mad at myself because I love necromancers and I just never saw it.
Oh my
Until
God,
one of our
yeah.
content team was just like, yeah, there's 2 puns on the front cover. And I was like, 2 puns? He was like, yeah, there's a night owl and a necromancer. It was so much fun. But yeah, I love Oddwald and Riffin. And they're, that's why they sit on that front cover. And Riffin fast became the face of the company. Like we know he's cute.
Yeah, he's a cutie. I personally love the contrast between like grumpy, kind of broody, dark wizard and just a little guy. Like, I think that's the best, like, happy little guy, broody, dark, like, grumpy, cranky guy in my head. It's like such a fun duo. So yeah.
So thinking about where you're saying like you're building a party, somebody somebody anonymously posed a question. They were like, what creature would you like to Humblewoodify? Like if you had to pick an animal that hasn't been done yet, or that you would like to turn into a Humblewood creature.
Oh.
Like what's that next member of the party in your head?
Oh my goodness. We have so far done quite a lot of different animal or definitely animal groups or sort of types. I'm like aquatic animals would be really interesting. I think that would be really cool. Like creepy deep sea creatures or something.
Okay.
That would be a whole undertaking design wise, but I think it would be fun. Like I think I don't know, like I love reptiles and stuff. They're some of my favorites. But yeah, I mean, we've explored quite a few. I think like the cool thing about Humblewood is that a lot of the sort of groups allow for you to kind of fit so many animals under like that one umbrella. So like the group with raccoons, it includes, from memory, correct me if I'm wrong, but it includes like mustelids and weasels, etc. So
Yeah,
I
so
think
that was the original, yeah. Like, and I'm a big fan of saying during shows that, like, oh, if you want to play a mouse, just take a drbine and say it's a mouse instead of,
yeah.
or if you want to play a rabbit instead of a drbine, you can do that. I know we do have, like you mentioned, reptiles. Like we're doing the gecko folk in Humblewood too, along with
Yes, love
some
that.
like the cat folk, which Patreons have seen stuff for that. So yeah, so we have, the list keeps growing. So who knows? Aquatic creatures might be down the road. I think that would be a lot of fun, like deep sea, Humblewood, Humble Sea, you know.
I wonder, yeah, I want like maybe they would need to be sort of like semi-aquatic so they could, get out of the water and walk around. But yeah, it would be an interesting design challenge.
Nice. Let's see. God. Um, so thinking back to the early days of Humblewood, how was it like selecting the artists? Like, initially, like, how did you pick the people that were working on Humblewood one?
So I largely it was sort of, honestly, it was quite easy for me because I have been sort of in the industry for a long enough time that I follow so many artists. I really pay attention to all of the work out there. And when I think of something, I can often think of a handful of artists. I'm like, they would be an amazing choice for that. So um, I'd already been following a lot of artists that I know do amazing work for properties like similar to D&D, if not D&D itself, magic artists and stuff like that that kind of would sort of hit the rendering style we were looking at, but also the tone. I think like the mood and the tone was really important. So it wasn't just, I mean, more than anything, hiring artists who would fit the subject matter, so which is obviously largely animals. We did look at some sort of environment artists too for some pieces, but by and large, it was making sure that we were hiring artists who would enjoy the work. And that meant hiring artists who, were comfortable working with animals, especially sort of like anthropomorphic sort of character design, which not everyone does enjoy doing. Like, not everyone does have experience in that. So I really wanted to make sure to give the few people who do really focus on that, to definitely reach out to them. And yeah, so it wasn't hard to choose artists. Sometimes it was hard to book them in because we tend to sort of have very busy schedules, especially the artists that are quite well known. But yeah, it was just going for people who were comfortable working with animals, who sort of had a really good grasp on rendering like certain materials, obviously, especially fur, feathers, etc. And also could sort of capture the mood, which I guess the mood for Humblewood one that I was going for was, it was a sort of like whimsical sense of wonder, but with an element of like potential danger as well, which I think kind of like captures the feeling that we were going for in general, with the storytelling, because it's by and large like it's kind of somewhere you'd want to live in my head. I think like we read a lot of this is a long answer to a short question, but I'm getting there. But we read a lot of we consume a lot of like fantasy worlds that we're kind of like, this is cool to read about. I don't know if I'd want to live there. Like Game of Thrones. It's cool, you know. I don't know if I'd want to live there. Lots of people don't have a great time there, you know. But Humblewood, I would live there. I would absolutely live there in a second. So I think it was like the tone is more there are dangers, but if you want to live your best life, just hanging out, being a little guy, you can do that. If you want to be a brave little adventurer and go find those dangers and overcome them with your friends, you can do that. So it was like a very specific tone. And I think honestly, like even looking back, I'm so happy with all of the art in Humblewood 1. I think the artists like did an absolutely amazing job. I think especially a lot of the art that we would use quite a lot for promotional materials was by Christina Kraus, who's just an incredible artist. And if anyone wants to link her work in the chat, please feel free. But yeah, she's amazing. I was very lucky to work with her closely on that stuff. So yeah, hope that answers your question.
Yeah, we love working with Christina. She's coming back to work on she worked on Humblewood Tales and is working on Humblewood 2. So yeah, we love Christina's work. So the question that kind of ties into this, and you've kind of partially answered it, like when art directing, what questions or criteria do you keep in mind for Humblewood projects? How do you make sure that artists deliver work that is distinctly Humblewood? You kind of answered some of that, but is there anything else you wanted to expound on there?
I think, I mean, the most obvious answer to that is just providing them with existing Humblewood art or good examples of the tone. It with a new IP, it's a little difficult because you're trying to set a tone, but you don't have existing artwork yet. So in that case, you go and find examples. You you go on ArtStation or wherever, you look at art, you make a mood board, you make sure that you're getting the tone across visually. Artists really respond to visual information. So making sure that, yeah, I know. Who would have thought? But yeah, just having like a really, really good, strong mood board. Yeah, I think just communicating the tone with them and also providing examples of other games or other properties, anything, books, movies, or TV shows, or something that has a similar tone. That sort of helps. I think for me, it really helped because I have been an artist for a long time. And so I know what works for me when art directors communicate with me. So the information that they give me that is easy for me to understand and gives me a clear picture in my head. I was kind of able to use that experience on the other side of things as an art director in order to communicate exactly what we wanted. So yeah, style guides also helped. We were able to build a style guide over time, which was fantastic. But again, it's something that we didn't have at the very beginning. So it was like definitely a little bit of a bumpy road at first, but we did get there. And moving forward, that's really the first thing you would do is just send out a style guide. And yeah.
Oh, yeah. I'll say it's been working on Humblewood as an art director has been a lot, like having the original Humblewood to reference to be like, oh, this is kind of the vibe we're going for, and these are the images we're kind of going for. And as we've learned along the way, like I mentioned Christina Kraus did a whole bunch of concept art for the races that are appearing in Humblewood 2. So having those for reference to send to artists have been huge and really helpful. But it really helped learning those early steps, like you said, in the early days of the IP. That didn't exist, so it's making everything a little bit easier for me. So thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
So that brings up a question from Poppy. What creatures were the hardest to draw for Humblewood, and what made them hard?
Yeah, so we chat about this briefly, I guess. So I would say there wasn't any particular creature that was hard to draw, but we did have some challenges in sort of figuring out how to represent the bird folk in terms of what do we do with their wings, their hands, their feet. For example, like how do we portray bird hands? Are they talons? Like there are some there's not a lot of examples of this. I could mostly just find cartoons like Disney cartoons and stuff where they used their wings to hold things, and to me it looked kind of ridiculous. It's like they were holding things with pieces of paper shaped like a feather. Like it didn't make sense. I was like, okay, we need to like actually reapproach this and give them like talon hands sort of. So we approached it like that, but it was kind of a learning process. And once we really figured out, okay, this is what we want to do, we kind of did have to go back and edit some of the old artwork and adjust the anatomy a little bit. To make it look like they really had like proper like talon hands that could hold weapons. Like that was important. And the other thing was feet. And this is actually not just birds, but like animals in general. How do they wear shoes? What does that look like? Do some of them maybe not have shoes? Maybe they just have sort of like leg wraps or something like that, so that they can still use their actual like feet, talons. And so it wasn't so much a creature or a type of animal, it was more those sort of considerations, like design considerations, because I think the best fantasy is rooted in reality, which means it doesn't have to look realistic, but it needs to look sort of believable, and sort of functional. So yeah, so if you look at like a bird folk and they are holding a weapon and you're like, but how could they hold that? It doesn't look right. It's kind of jarring. We wanted to avoid that. So yeah.
There was for me when we were working on some of the new races for Humblewood 2, one of them was the Capran, the goat folk. And Christina did a great job showing how their hands would work, because their pinky is almost like they have 4 fingers, so a thumb, 3 fingers, but their pinky's almost like a separate thumb, like the appendage sticks out at a different angle. So I had a few times with artists where I had to be like, that's close, just need to tweak it a little bit, so that it fits the way, because she did a really good job like thinking of how if a goat folk had a hand instead of the hoof almost feet that they have, what would that look like? So yeah, and just making sure that was believable is huge. So I can definitely relate to that. So I would say, yeah, hands and feet, oddly enough, are probably the hard parts.
Absolutely.
Blongus wrote in, what advice do you have for drawing realistic anthropomorphic creatures? Similar to what we were just talking about. Is there like a rule of thumb you follow when drawing?
So realistic, I mean, this is going to be really boring advice, but it's kind of going back to basics and learning the anatomy of normal animals, because when you look at sort of birds, mammals, and even humans, we all have very similar sort of muscle groups, skeletons. It's just kind of in different places. So I think if you sit down and draw a ton of animals from reference, that's kind of all you need to do. You just need to draw a ton of animals closely from reference, and do tons of studies, look at their skeletons, like maybe probably do some courses from artists who specialize in that kind of thing. There's a ton of really good stuff on like Schoolism for that, and I would list a bunch of other places, but I can't think of any right now. But there's a lot of like courses out there from artists who specifically do creature design. But yeah, it's figuring out how to draw normal animals accurately, and then using that sort of visual information, that like anatomical information, to create anthropomorphized versions of that. And I think there is some stylization involved as well. You don't just take an animal head and put it on a sort of humanoid body. There are some sort of it's weird. Like, I would love to say there are rules for this, but sometimes it just comes down to it. Does this feel kind of weird? And why does it feel weird? Like, I don't know. I've seen some like, okay, like cat people are very popular thing. They're in Skyrim, they're in some other RPGs. Sometimes they just look weird. Sometimes it just looks like a cat head plonked on a human body. And it's like, that seems kind of weird, but why? And how do we make it seem not weird? How do we make it seem kind of believable? And some of that is like in the treatment, I think, of like the legs, and sort of how we, like, I don't really know how to explain this with my words and not visually. But yeah, it's a lot of trial and error, because when you're creating something that doesn't exist, there are no super hard rules to follow. It's kind of like the same question as asking sort of like, how do you draw a dragon? They don't exist. So what we can only sort of take information from existing animals and use that information to create something that feels like it could possibly exist. So hopefully that helps. But at the end of the day, same answer that you're going to hear all the time, which is just do a bunch of studies, draw from life. That will give you the basis to then like learn the rules, and then you can break the rules, kind of thing. So yeah.
Always comes down to basics.
It does.
Here we go. Cascade posted a question. Hi, Leesha, big Magic player here. Love your work when they show up on cards. Do you have a favorite in particular out of those? So we'll jump into Magic for a little bit.
Yes. My favorite card I've painted. Oh my god. I definitely enjoy. I don't know if this is going to be something that people know. I did a cat token, and it's just a little cat with wings.
Oh, I love that piece.
It's honestly, it's quite simple, like, but I just think it's very funny because it just looks like he's pouncing on you from above, and I think it's funny. And he just makes people smile. And I love that. Like, it's not like my most popular card ever, because the most popular ones tend to be the ones that are, actual good cards with good stats, and I can't control that. So Rin Seri is the one that I have a soft spot for because it is my most popular card, because people use it in Commander. But yeah, I do like that little pussycat. He's just a fun little guy. It was really fun to paint. I think another one I like is the Vulpikeet, which is a fox with wings. That one was really fun. I like the color scheme still to this day. It's interesting when I did the art for the flying cat token. The wings were, I think, based on owl wings, if I remember correctly, and whereas the wings for the Vulpikeet were based on actually macaw wings, which is kind of random. And they give a different feel. So different wings, definitely, they're built for different things, whether that's sort of quick movements or quiet movements, like owl wings. So it's kind of a fun challenge. But yeah, so I don't know. I like those ones. And yeah, I think Magic does a good job at giving me cards that they know that I will have fun with. So I'm grateful to my art directors, to be honest.
Yeah, I still really. It always reminds me there's that video of that cat that's getting tickled and he goes like this, and that's what reminds me of your token, right?
Oh my god!
First time I saw it, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, 100%.
One of our staff members asked, what kind of inspiration and references brought you into your particular art style?
Inspiration. I can definitely name a bunch of artists who have inspired me. It's style's a weird one because you kind of just fall into it and you don't realize how you got there. I mean, it comes from, you know, hundreds of different places that you might not even really be aware of, but because it's just sort of from the content we absorb sort of day to day as well. But in terms of artist inspiration, oh my God, there's so many, I'm going to forget so many of them, but you know, artists like Carla Ortiz or Jason Rainville's amazing, or you know, Ilse Gort, she's amazing. She's a fantastic anthropomorphic artist. She worked on Humblewood as well. Oh my God, there's honestly Tyler Jacobson's amazing. Alex Konstad, he's fantastic. There's just so many. And I think something that a lot of these artists have in common is their use of color and light. I just love that. I think I get a lot of compliments on my art that is to do with my lighting. And I think yeah, I think that is definitely something that I put a lot of emphasis on, and a lot of my favorite artists do that as well, and I just love it. It's just makes me happy to look at, so I do try and emulate that. I think the book Color and Light is a fantastic resource for any artists in chat if you're looking for a good book for that sort of thing. It's probably like the best art book that I can recommend to anyone. It's fantastic. So yeah, I don't know, hopefully that answers that question. I get a lot of my sort of inspiration as in drive to create from just nature, from, you know, just walking out in nature, going to the zoo, like anything like that. I just love that sort of stuff, which is obviously why I'm a creature artist primarily. So yeah, hopefully that answers that.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Artists that can handle light well are really important, especially when you get into animals, because like how light interacts with fur and feathers is very
Yeah.
dynamic. And you can
Yes,
tell
absolutely.
when people feel comfortable doing that versus not. So that's a huge one. Like if you can handle light well, great.
Yeah.
So Sasha asked, what's your favorite kind of emotion to try to create with your art? What vibes make your art brain go, yeah?
Oh, my favorite kind of emotion, I'd say like my favorite as in like comfort zone is like kind of happy and relaxed. So it's like, you know, walking through a little forest and there's dappled light coming through the leaves and there's like little insects buzzing and it's, you know, that kind of vibe. I do love artwork that feels kind of like sad though. I love looking at it. I do like making it sometimes. So I kind of like that contrast. I would love to say that I really like that I'm really into making creepy art. I love like creepy, spooky art. Um, it's really funny because I feel like more than once I have been asked to draw something scary, like a scary monster. And I have, oh my God, like a funny story was D&D got me to illustrate this monster for one of their sort of campaigns. This was a while ago. It was this big crocodile. Um, and my art director was like, okay, here's the brief, you know, it's a big, like really huge crocodile. He's missing a tooth, he's got a big scar, and he's really scary and all of this. And I did a sketch and I sent it back and she's like, Leesha, this is too cute. And I'm like, what do you mean? And she's like, this is like a really good sketch, but he's way too cute. And I'm like, damn it, I did it again, I made it cute. And so I really had to like completely redo that one, make it really like scary. In the end she was happy with it, but it's just really funny that my brain just doesn't like it doesn't click with the scary stuff as easily, and then I accidentally make scary things cute. It happens to me all the time. So I just need to accept that my vibe is sort of cute, happy, fun things, and maybe one day I can embrace my inner brooding dark side, but for the moment, yeah.
I mean, cute works. I mean, like you said, that was kind of the vibe that Humblewood kind of gives off, so that works well for that. But we do have creepy and cute, right?
Exactly. I love
in the
that.
books, so it's a nice like opposite of flavors juxtaposition kind of thing. So,
Yeah.
we got an anonymous question. What's your favorite project you've worked on recently?
I mean, the whole last year was Daggerheart, which I can't talk too much about, but it's a new RPG being developed by Darrington Press, which is the publishing arm of Critical Role, which I'm sure everyone is familiar with. And yeah, it was really, really cool experience, and everyone should definitely keep an eye out for updates. I can't really talk too much about it, but that was the most recent project I was involved in, and at the moment I have sort of returned to freelance. So working with Magic again, working with D&D again after sort of taking a bit of a break from freelance, getting back to it. It's actually been really fun. So yeah, I'll see what else is on the horizon, but for now that's what I'm up to.
Working with us again, right? So
Yes, absolutely. I didn't know if I was allowed to say, but
oh
yes,
yeah, you can say that you're working on it. We're excited to have you back on working on Humblewood. It's like coming home again,
yeah,
right?
yes, exactly. No, I'm so happy to be doing some pieces for you guys too, and yeah, it's gonna be awesome. Everyone should be so excited.
Yeah, the Stormcrag piece you did should have gone out, went out as a um, in progress as a write up for Stormcrag this month, actually. So
Yeah,
people that listen now
yeah.
should have been able to see the piece in progress, showing off that fun little Stormcrag scene we're working on. So people know, right?
Oh, okay, cool, cool.
And
Yes,
there's
awesome.
more coming. So another one from the HPP staff. Are there any projects that you have in mind that you'd like to do?
I have so many. Um, they're all kind of personal projects and ideas that maybe I'll need a publisher for one day. Who knows? But yeah, no, I have a couple that I am developing actually with another artist friend, and yeah, they're kind of smaller projects at the moment, and uh they're kind of they're definitely something that would appeal to tabletop fans. I won't get into it yet though because it's still sort of very early in the process. But yeah, definitely a few things floating around. I would love to one day do a kind of like like a sort of compilation of cool creatures that you can add to your game. I'd love to sort of sit down and just design a bunch of new creatures off the top of my head. I think that would be a really cool challenge for me as an artist. But yeah, I've honestly, one of the hardest things is just I have so many ideas, and choosing one to actually sit down and work. My little ADHD brain can't do it. It's finding somewhere to land is the hardest part. But yeah, I definitely have some cool things coming up for sure.
I think a little bestiary by Leesha sounds awesome, right? Like I just, especially if we
Yeah.
have a little more of those cute mean crocodiles.
Oh my god. I'm literally going to sort of retroactively rebel and make a very adorable little crocodile race just just because I need it, apparently.
We have Oscar asking, any advice for aspiring art directors? How did you get your start in the industry?
I didn't really mean to. It sort of just happened when we started working on Humblewood. again, we didn't plan to make a big sort of campaign setting. I sort of just ended up in that role, and it came very naturally to me. I really love doing it, and it's definitely something I'm going to be continuing to do in my career. But in terms of getting a start, I wish I could give you more information than that. I think having a background in art and design definitely helps. But aside from sort of contacting different companies and, applying for job openings, like keeping an eye on places like ArtStation, I don't know where else post these things. I don't work with people in-house. I'm a remote kind of, like, I work with people remotely, so it's kind of a different set of rules. But yeah, I would honestly, keep an eye on job openings, see what their criteria are, and then I suppose do everything you can to, whether you have that criteria or not, at least it's something that you can work on in the meantime. So
I can say in my own position, it was art background, being in the right place at the right time, and luck.
yeah, it is that.
Like, I wish I could say, putting the work in is important, but it's something I just kind of fell into too. So I get that feeling.
Yeah, for sure.
So I wish I had a better answer other than that, Oscar. But it's a lot of fun. I love working with artists. So if you get to do it, it's awesome. Let's see. Usopp's Fables asks, what's the toughest project you've had to work on?
The toughest project. I definitely took some freelance jobs a little earlier in my career that were not in my comfort zone, and that stuff that's sort of not thematically what I would usually work on. Maybe they're a little bit sci-fi or cyberpunk or something like that. And I think, like, early in your career, you just take whatever jobs you can, which is understandable, but something you really want to avoid doing is ending up with a bunch of pieces that are of a style or genre that you do not enjoy, because then people will keep trying to hire you to do more of that thing that you don't enjoy. So that was a hard lesson, but it's without calling out any specific clients from back then, there was definitely some projects that were suffering from a lack of direction or a lack of organization, and honestly a lot of projects that really needed an art director but didn't have one. It's amazing how important art directors are, and you kind of don't realize it until you're trying to do a project for a company that doesn't have an art director, and they don't have someone who knows how to actually communicate with artists or doesn't know sort of what the art process involves. So yeah, that's definitely something I've encountered more than a few times. So I'd put it down to that, really.
Yeah, one of my big feedback to artists, if they're working on a portfolio, is put in the portfolio the work that you want to be doing, right? Like,
Yes.
if you don't want to be working on sci-fi, don't put sci-fi stuff in there. Otherwise, you're going to get people
100%.
reaching out about sci-fi stuff. I mean, it's always nice to have a breadth of work, but if there's a particular focus that you want to be good at or want work in, but you're right. Early on, you kind of take whatever you can get. D4D asked, what's a tabletop game or tabletop RPG you think should get more attention?
Oh, I wish that I knew more about that sort of thing. I don't know. I honestly, I can't. I'm not. I'm like, I can't think of any off the top of my head. I'm not really up to speed with more recent tabletop games. So Brian, you might be able to think of some. You guys are probably more up to date with that sort of thing than I am.
Yeah, it's hard because like being there, like I get to see them. I mean, there's a lot of great companies making a lot of great stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I was gonna say I would love if we got more attention. But we're getting a lot, like between D&D Beyond and
Yeah.
um, having another really successful Kickstarter this last month with Floral Dragons. Like, we get a lot of attention. But we could always use more. Um, but there's some great companies out there. Some that we partnered with. Like DM Dave's got some great like one-line prompt D&D stuff, and um, Mage Hand Press with their Dark Matter and the Spire book, and then I'm just trying to think of people I know from shows that I want to give a shout out to, just because they make really great stuff. But
Yeah.
as big as Humblewood is, there's still a lot of people that come up to us at shows and go, "What is this?"
Yeah.
So there's always room to shout out and to grow. But as for like specific ones that I think that are like underrepresented, like there's always, I don't know of any specific ones, but diversity and inclusion and everything else that you want to see in games that have been getting better and better over the last few years in the industry.
Yeah.
We just want to see that keep growing. And Humblewood, is unusual because we have birds, but we try to be as inclusive with LGBTQ rights and like putting pronouns in books.
Yeah.
Making sure that we're being as inclusive as possible. That would probably be the biggest thing I'd want to shout out, like that the industry is getting and that we hope continues to flourish, which is, diversity and inclusion, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right. So yeah, I don't really have a specific one. Sorry, D4D. It was already kind of asked, but we've had some time to stew on it, and so we'll kind of Pop's Doodles missed the question initially, but not sure if this has already been asked. But is there one species or creature from the Humblewood universe that you haven't had the chance to illustrate yourself, but desperately want to?
Oh. That already exists in the universe, was it?
It doesn't say it does say from the Humblewood universe. So I guess, yeah. So it's one that I guess something in Humblewood that you've wanted to illustrate that you haven't had a chance to yet. Because we kind of already said, like, if you could humblify a creature, it would be the something like deep sea or aquatic. But
Yeah.
say if it's something that's in the universe as of right now.
Oh. Oh my goodness. I just love all of them. It's so hard to choose. I was gonna say geckos, but I did do Spleck, so and he's very important. So
Yes.
he's a Spleck is a naughty little merchant from the first book. So yeah, I don't know, probably like definitely more lizards and stuff like that would be really cool. Oh my goodness, I'm trying to think. Because I've done that. The hard thing is I've done quite a lot of them. Whether internally just sketches and concept art type stuff or actually art in the book. So I'm trying to think of like ones that I haven't done anything with at all. Yeah, I'm gonna have to get back to you on that one, but more reptiles. I would definitely say more reptiles.
Luckily, should be a lot of opportunities in this one with them being a playable race. So cross our fingers.
I would
Um,
love that.
and if anyone's not too familiar with Spleck, Spleck is also a major that comes up a lot in our Humblewood Tales, like the 1.5 sequel to Humblewood. That
Yeah,
backers should be getting, like started getting their books now. So he's out in the wild.
I love that.
Yeah, and he's actually our featured pin, like Penny Arcade pin this year from PAX Unplugged. So there's now an official
Oh,
pin of them. So that's that one. Let's see. Uh, Dungeon Mama asks, will the Humblewood 2 adventure tie into the first campaign? I'm currently running, and the original adventure was curious with my players, and I'll be to continue with the same characters. Spoiler, it's kind of a spoiler. To my knowledge, yes, the adventure will continue the themes from the first book. We're currently working on flushing that out now internally, and like working on building everything up for the adventure. But there are several adventures that we've done that you can do to carry on that are available on the website. So like there's the Slime King, Wakeworm's Fury, oodles of adventures that if you want to continue telling the story with the same characters, you can do that. But if you really want to tie into the second book, that should be doable. Like it's designed to kind of follow the story. So read and find out, as it were. Yeah. Let's see. So for Leesha, I've kind of talked about this, and so I know the answer. Do you have a favorite Humblewood piece?
I actually love, oh my god, there's so many. I love the one by Christina, and it's the market in the tree.
Oh, that's such a good one. The lights.
Yeah. It's so adorable and detailed, and I remember the first time I saw it, I was just like, oh my god, this is amazing. That's probably like my favorite one in terms of it made me so happy. She just nailed it. It was a difficult thing to illustrate as well. It's a very strange environment. It's like the inside of a hollow tree, but there is a center of the tree, and it's this kind of like weird space, and like making that obvious that we are inside a space and it's made of wood. It's like the weirdest sort of challenge, but she did a great job. So that's probably like my favorite, but there's so many, honestly. There's so many pieces I just absolutely love.
There's so many good pieces. I always say, and I brought it up in the stream talking to Rico, that I love the amaranthine. Like it's still like the black and white pieces.
Yeah.
Every time I flip through the book, they're so striking, and it just gets me every time. So it's really hard for me to pick two, but if I had to, those are the ones that I always gravitate towards. Yeah, Lauren Henderson did a great job with those.
Yeah. No, they're fantastic.
So we're gonna do. So we're just gonna end on a quick note. Like, do you have any fun memories from creating the original Humblewood?
Oh, like so many. Okay, I was thinking about this the other day because making the plushie was so funny. Because we went through so many iterations. This is just a fun, random, weird memory. But so I hadn't designed a plushie before, so that was a new thing for me. And I just sort of did a little sort of simplified turnaround of Riffin. And the back and forth with the manufacturer was it was very interesting. And I remember the first prototype we got of Riffin was so weird looking. It was really funny. He sort of looked like he'd been smushed. And I think from what I can understand that the team held on to that prototype as a little memory. But yeah, I think that was like just like a random funny sort of thing to work on. But yeah, I mean, there were so many like good memories of working on that project. From the get-go, it was just like working with such a good team of people. All the artists were amazing. Everyone did like such a good job. Like it's like, yeah, it's definitely been like one of the best experiences of my career for sure. So it's very hard to choose just one memory. when the Kickstarter went live, that was very exciting. Obviously, like there's like really obviously cool memories in there, but yeah, it's hard to answer.
I remember when that Kickstarter went live, and we were like, "Oh, this will do okay," and then it just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger and
Yeah.
bigger, and we were like, "Oh, that number just keeps going up. What's happening?"
Yeah.
So yeah, it was really nice to see the crossover of fans for like who's like you said, surprising anthropomorphic animal fans and D&D fans. Oh look,
Yeah.
there's overlap. That Venn diagram
Oh,
has a
yeah.
lot of space in there. So yeah, and plushies. I remember the iterations for the plushie. I wasn't involved in the conversations, but I remember seeing the samples that Rico, the owner, was posting, and it was a fun journey. So,
Yeah.
okay. Well, before we sign off, Pops Doodles snuck in a quick question. Another question. I have grand dreams. Leesha, do you take smaller private art commissions, or do you prefer to work with bigger projects now?
Oh, I do still take private commissions anytime I possibly can and have time for that sort of thing. For sure. I actually really like working with private clients because they've always got such like unique ideas. It's really cool like when someone approaches me with a D&D character they've obviously been playing with for ages or something, and they've got like this whole backstory. It's the amount of clients that will send me a whole document of like, this is my character and here's all the stuff they've done, and it's like I get to read a short story like before even illustrating this scene. I'm like, oh my god, this is amazing. But yeah, private commissions, projects, it's a whole spectrum. So yeah.
So that ties into a good one before we sign off. Like, what's a good way for people to follow your work or get in touch with you?
So you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter. It's the same handle. It's just Leesha Hannigan. It's very easy to remember. So just a little @ symbol and then Leesha Hannigan, and then on Twitter, the same thing. And if you go to my website, it's again just leeshahannigan.com. My email is listed there. I have a contact form, and yeah, definitely get in touch. I'm very happy to chat with anyone about art or anything Humblewood, or literally, I don't know, anything in between. Show me pictures of your pets. That's always a winner. But yeah, no, I'm probably the most active on Instagram, and Twitter. I forgot Facebook existed. I am on there. I do not ever go on there. Like I sometimes check it every few months, but yeah, mostly Instagram to be honest. So
With that, we're gonna sign off. Leesha, thank you for joining us, and everybody that hopped into the stream and the chat. Thank you for being with us too. It was a lot of fun, and look forward to our next Patreon stream for May.
yeah, thanks everyone. Thanks for having me.
Toodles, everybody.